Hello, everyone. To those just tuning in, welcome. To those who've been checking out sessions throughout the day, welcome back. We hope you're enjoying the content and looking forward to more awesome presentations coming up. A big thank you to our partners and speakers for helping us deliver a fantastic program. A quick reminder to join our Slack channel to interact with other attendees and join selected speakers for Q&A. You can find the link in the menu at the top of this page. Happy viewing.
Hi everyone, I'm Kyle Poyer from OpenView, and I'm here to talk about product-led growth and the rise of the user. OpenView is a venture capital firm based in Boston, and we actually coined the term product-led growth based on what we were seeing in our top portfolio companies. So looking at companies like Datadog, Expensify, Calendly, they were taking a really different approach to how they built product and grew the business. And we thought that that's something that was really going to be key to the future of software. And so we've really tried to build a community around product-led growth. And then I personally lead our growth practice, working hand in hand with our portfolio companies to drive product-led growth best practices. And I'm excited to walk through kind of why we've seen this change in the market and how you can adapt to grow even faster and more efficiently through product-led growth. If you think back, 5, 10, 15 years ago, it used to be hard to adopt new software. It took a lot of people, right? If you think about the sales process, all of the qualification, demos, finding a champion inside an organization, another demo, ultimately doing a proof of concept, and then a really complex implementation, which could take weeks or months, and then training and certification for folks to actually see value in the product. All of this process took time. We're talking about months or even years before folks saw value out of the product. And even then, a lot of times software products didn't really get implemented by the end user. And not anymore. We don't have the patience for that anymore, do we? Today, if you think about how your organization adopts software, it just kind of shows up, and it shows up unannounced. End users are finding these products. They're finding products like Dropbox and Calendly and Expensify, and they're telling their boss which ones to buy instead of the other way around. And we call this the end user era, and the end user era is here, and it's here to stay. And the best SaaS companies, the ones on everyone's minds, recognize it. So when you look at the S1s of companies like Atlassian, Dropbox, Zoom, the documents that they file when these companies go public, which is the most important document that they have in their life up to this point, they're really calling out this end user era and how that's adapting how they build software. So if you look at Atlassian, they say, we recognize that users drive the adoption and proliferation of our products. Dropbox says bottom-up adoption within organizations has been critical to our success as users increasingly choose their own tools at work. And Zoom, which everyone's using right now, says that we grow through viral demand driven by individual users. And this isn't just limited to a few companies. HubSpot, which is the pioneer of inbound marketing software and never really had a product-led growth approach to their business at all, has recognized this shift too. And their CEO and co-founder, Brian Halligan, has talked about how they've completely pivoted their business model to reflect this. And his aha moment was in looking at how their own organization was buying software. Well, he said, everything we buy starts with a little project at the edge of the organization, some developers tinkering with something, a couple salespeople, a couple marketers, and then it ends up on the CIO's desk. Software buying has been turned on its head, and you need to market and sell to humans and enable those humans to put it to work for you. And so HubSpot started opening up freemium offerings of all of their products. Every product they have is available via self-service to try before you need to talk to anyone. It's been this huge shift in the organization, and it's setting them up for really healthy future growth opportunity. So why is this happening? We took a step back and looked at trends in the software industry that are really contributing to this rise of product-led growth. So the first is in the cloud evolution, right? So data used to be held in a physical data center on a physical rack. It started moving over to the cloud, right, where you would be able to rent software, access software that was stored in the cloud, as opposed to installing it on-premise in a physical machine. And now we've seen this evolution. We're still cloud-based, but now we're moving towards a more connected cloud. Software is more and more composed as opposed to built from scratch. We're leaning on API services. And we have this expectation that every piece of software that we use should be connected to all of the other software that we use, whether through Zapier or custom integrations, and should be available wherever we want to use it, right? So not just on a computer, but also on a mobile phone or on other devices. We're also seeing a price evolution, right? So in the 90s, all of this work and time and on-premise infrastructure meant that buying software was extremely expensive. You're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars. In the 2000s, software started to become more affordable. It was, a $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 purchase. Now we're seeing that software generally starts for free with either a free product or a freemium offering, which makes it much more accessible to more people in an organization to try to use. And then the buyer has shifted too. So in that previous era with, really complicated infrastructure needs, the CIO was king. CIO was really important to make sure there was interoperability and software could actually work in the organization. Moving to the 2000s with cloud-based software, we started seeing the rise of the executive in buying software. So the head of marketing would be responsible for the marketing automation platform. The head of sales and sales operations would run CRM. And the executive started taking on more and more importance in the buying process. But today, with this connected cloud and free software, it's all about the end user. And then distribution has to adapt to this new environment. In the previous era, where you had really complex buying conversations and expensive purchases, you needed sales to go in the field, meet with folks, take them out to lunch, take them out to dinner, and really build a close relationship given the kind of investment that was being made. In this executive era, we started moving more towards inside sales and marketing-led growth. Marketing would generate a list of inbound leads, generally people that found your website or started reading your content, and then sales would close the deal through inside sales over the phone. But in this new era, we're seeing the product take on more and more of the responsibilities of both marketing and sales. And so the product becomes key to how you acquire, convert, and retain your users. And this evolution can't be stopped, right? We're really firmly in this end user era. And as we've moved from one to the next, it's not, a light switch, it's more like a dimmer switch. And so we've started seeing more and more of this end user era and product-led growth, and we can expect to see that trend continue in the future. It doesn't mean other business models go away, but it means that they get superseded by the end user era. And product-led growth is really critical to building a business in this environment. And at OpenView, we think of product-led growth as a strategy where your product usage serves as the main driver of user acquisition, conversion, and expansion. And product-led growth has really been at the core for how the top software companies that are going public today have built their business. So if you think about Slack, Dropbox, Atlassian, and Zoom, those are companies that really exemplify product-led growth. And in my opinion, COVID-19 and the recession that is happening now is making this even more important, right? Everyone's looking for ways to reduce costs of acquisition. And we're also realizing that in a lot of cases, customers don't have the budget for software that they had before, but they're still interested in trying out tools, and they still have the same pain points they've had. And so we're seeing more and more companies pivot to this switch, making tools available for free or going self-service to try to build this pipeline of satisfied users that they can sell into in the future. And when I look at implementing product-led growth within our portfolio companies and in the broader SaaS community, there are 4 really important steps to getting this right. And these steps really go together. I've seen examples, for instance, where people think of, all right, we're going product-led growth. That means we're going to launch a freemium edition. But if you don't do all of these things together, just that one initiative can fall flat. So I'll walk through this, starting with the appealing to the end users. When you think about what that end user cares about, right? And since we're in the end user era, the end user doesn't care about the same things the executive cares about. A lot of us are used to talking to executive pain. So like, we need to manage our sales pipeline. We need ROI. The end user pain is more about everyday annoyance. So if you think about an end user pain, it might be, I hate scheduling meetings. And so that's where Calendly comes into play as this really amazing tool that helps take this end user frustration and solves for it. And annoyance is opportunity in this end user era. For every one of the top product led companies, you can come up with an annoyance statement, which is effectively the new the new marketing tagline. For Slack, I hate internal emails. They're so annoying, so time consuming. Expensify, I hate expense reports. That was literally their tagline on their website for the longest time. Dropbox, I hate file sharing, and on and on. And appealing to end users means making it really easy to get started. End users demand self-service and they hate friction in the funnel. If you think about if you were adopting Uber and they were making you request a demo, talk to sales, sign an order form, even if they reduce some friction by making that available through DocuSign, like, would you download Uber? Probably not. Like, that's just too complicated, too time consuming. End users love just easy, few click sign up, ideally connecting with other applications, other logins they already have, automated terms and conditions, onboarding that's really fast to get into the product in an automated way, documentation and knowledge bases if they run into issues, and bots, kind of in-app chat and community to continue to get value out of the product over time. The second element is that price comes after value. And so you want to think about, what is that aha moment for your customer or for your user when they're using your product that helps them realize on the value that you were promising. Or you can think of this as solving for that annoyance that they initially came to you for. You don't want to charge until after you've solved that pain point. I think Slack is a really great example. And so Slack, obviously they're all about being a collaboration hub. They're for people that hate emails and want to be collaborating more closely with their team. And Slack has a really generous free plan. Some people even consider it too generous, where you can collaborate on Slack with as many people as you want. OpenView actually continued to use Slack for up to when we had about 50 people for free. But when Slack pivots from being this sort of nice to have tool that some people use in an organization to the tool where work really happens, you're connecting it with other applications, you have business critical data, that's when Slack monetizes. And so they have a usage limit around how much data you can store with Slack. And when Slack is really important and everyone's using it, you want access to that data. And so the paywall comes really cleverly after someone has seen value and reached this compelling event in the product. Another example is Zoom. As I think a number of people are experiencing their paywall right now, they make it free for anyone that wants to use Zoom to start setting up a Zoom meeting. They can have unlimited one-on-one meetings with their peers. But when they want to have a group meeting with 3 or more people, there's a 40-minute time limit. And group meetings tend to be more important meetings with your prospects, your customers, your executive team, so on. And it's a little friction, right? Like at the 40-minute mark, your meeting ends and you can spin up another one really quickly, but you don't want to, and you've already seen the value of Zoom at that point. And so there's a really great time to start paying for the product. And a free offering is really table stakes these days. So when we surveyed companies in our annual SaaS benchmark survey, product-led growth companies are almost all offering some sort of free offering for folks to start seeing value. A free trial was more common. 74% of folks have a free trial offering. And then freemium was adopted by about 38%. You can do the math that this adds up to above 100%. Some people do both. Right, where they have a freemium edition that's free forever, and then they have trials of more premium products. And I think as folks think about freemium versus free trial, what we've been learning is that freemium is more of an acquisition play. It opens up the top of funnel. It reduces the barrier to trying out your product because you know that you can use it, that a user can use it as long as they want. But a free trial is more of a sales tactic. It creates urgency, make sure people are driving adoption now. And so I think marrying the two can be extremely powerful for certain businesses. But if you're choosing between one or which one to implement first, think about whether it's really important to grow top of funnel. For instance, if your users drive virality in the product, or if it's more important to drive urgency and conversion through the funnel. And one concern that a bunch of folks say to me is, but my product can't be used immediately. Like, I'm not like an Evernote where you can just start keeping notes, or I'm not like a Dropbox. There's some friction to getting started. But what we're realizing is that friction is not an excuse to get your product. And of the companies with free versions, only 41% said that the product can be used practically immediately. The rest say that there is some friction to getting started. And this is where having really great product onboarding and trying to drive folks to product activation is really key. And I think that for really any company, even if you don't have a free offering, it's still important to have a team that's focused on reducing friction for your customers, because that just drives a better customer experience and gets your customers to see value in the product more easily and want to share it with more people in their organization. The other thing I'd add is that you can get creative with free. And so HubSpot, before they had freemium offerings or free trials, they had their free website grader. And what they would do is they would have you input your website, and they would grade it around the website performance, mobile optimization, SEO, and security, and make recommendations for what you can do to improve on all of those areas. Now, the nice thing is that adopting HubSpot would help you improve those areas. And so it was natural lead generation for their paid product, and it didn't cannibalize anything that they had in their paid version. So you can think of products like this as, like, if you're going to spend tens of thousands of dollars on an ROI study with a Forrester or a Gartner, or on paid demand gen, what can you do around product and thinking about product as a marketing channel in and of itself? The third area is to invest in customer success. And so PLG, as I'll talk about more, is not anti-sales, but sales is not the first thing that you build in. You want to be really user-centric, bring in those end users. And the first group that you'll need is actually support, to make sure those users are seeing value and you're addressing any concerns they have. Those users will quickly become teams, and teams need more proactive help around finding new use cases in the product and finding ways to collaborate really successfully as a group. And that's more about customer success as more proactive support. And then as you start reaching departments or entire companies, that's where sales can play a really important role of expanding in an account. But the important thing to note is that sales is not like sales of the past, where it's all about demos and lead qualification and finding a champion. You already have folks who are champions of the product, using it successfully internally. And it's more about navigating with your customer towards a shared goal. And that goal is getting even more value and getting more adoption of this product that they already love. And what I think is really interesting is Atlassian's model of adding sales to their organization. So Atlassian for a while was seen as anti-sales. They really talked about how they had no sales team. It was all self-service. They were completely transparent with their pricing. They could sell a $10,000 deal or more without a sales rep. And so Atlassian, I think no sales became to Atlassian what no software was to Salesforce back in the day. But Jay Simons, Atlassian's president, has been open that they've started to layer in more and more sales to their organization to accelerate on this self-service growth. And so he said, you're a large enterprise customer that has more complexity or potentially more value to us. We have a team that can help steer you in the right direction and answer a more complicated set of questions that you have. We call them enterprise advocates, and it's something that we began to grow about 4 years ago with a focus on really complex, large customers. And so I think what's important is sales came last, right? Much later in the organization. And sales is more about reducing friction for these advocates in a large enterprise. It turns out that, navigating procurement and legal reviews and security reviews can be really painful for a large company to do on their own. And so layering in people to help with that actually contributes to this reduction of friction, which is their mentality with their self-service product. And in many cases, sales is much more focused on driving customer expansion than new business alone. And so Zoom, for example, in their S1, they mentioned that 55% of their customers that are now spending $100,000 or more started with a single free user at Zoom. And so sales was really important to partnering with those champions, those early adopters, to drive broader rollout within the company, as opposed to reaching out to someone who was totally new to Zoom. And the last thing I'd add is, because you're able to be selling into an existing base of users, it's really important to start using product data to enable the sales process. And the most important item that I would add as any sort of product marketer or product leader is a concept of a product qualified lead, or a PQL. And we're finding that not very many companies are doing this today, but a PQL is someone that's taking an action in the product that indicates that they're really ready for a touch point for expansion or conversion. So they might be clicking on a call to action because they actually want help. Or it could be that they want to do something really complicated in the product that's difficult to do self-service, like a complex integration. Or they just are using the product so much and hitting usage limitations in the product, and you might want to sell them a package that has, a lot more generous of a usage cap. And it's not just important to measure data in the sales funnel. I think with a product-led growth organization, the fourth pillar is that you want to measure everything. So you're looking at a much greater volume of users and of customers than a traditional software company. And the metrics and data infrastructure needs to look more like a traditional B2C business as opposed to a traditional B2B software company. And so we're talking about really great analytics to know what's going on in the product. So user cohort behavior, user activity, and so on, so that you can find out who your PQLs are. And I think it's important to think of product analytics as both, there's the quantitative portion of the data on user events and behavior, and then there's the qualitative portion with tools like FullStory, where you can understand more around user sessions and what their journey looked like through the product and what friction that they're running into. It's also important to measure user activation. So user activation, as I mentioned earlier, is that moment when your product delivers on that value proposition that you promised in the first place. So you solve that annoyance for the end user. And this is something that you want to be defining clearly for your organization, because it's so important as a leading indicator for future valuable activities like conversion and retention. And this is something that you'll want to be designing experiments to continue to optimize the percentage of your new users who are reaching activation in the product, because of how important it is. And so it speaks to the third area of in-product experiments. This is not something that a number of large enterprise-focused SaaS companies are that comfortable with, but in-product experiments are critical to driving growth in a product-led business, because growth comes from optimizing the funnel and constantly getting better and better and better. And if you can find a 15% improvement in activation and then a 15% improvement from conversion to expansion, you can start to really layer in growth that starts to look exponential over time. And then finally, I would just note that a number of folks, when they start measuring things, they look at averages or distributions, but I would just caution you to look at cohorts of what's happening among a certain group of folks that are starting together, and thinking about what happens with your new cohorts before and after experiments that you run. And you need people to run these experiments. We're seeing the rise of product growth teams. This is a group that is relatively new. I think a few years ago, we called them growth hackers, but we realized that they do a lot more than just growth hacking. They're really a cross-functional group that's looking at ways to improve the funnel from sign up all the way through to post-purchase. and they catalyze a culture of experimentation in an organization. We found that SaaS companies that have a growth team are far more likely to be constantly running in-product experiments that can drive growth. So just kind of zooming out, if you want to be like, these companies on this list, the companies on everyone's minds, companies like Slack, DocuSign, Dropbox, HubSpot, they're all in on product-led growth, as you can see from their S1s. Thinking about this change in the end user era and how end users are driving the adoption, the virality, and really the evangelism of software companies and telling their boss which ones to buy. I particularly like Zoom's note that as free hosts realize the benefits of our platform, they often subscribe to a paid platform. And what's interesting is that for them, their free hosts have the benefit of constantly exposing Zoom to more people, because it turns out that when you host a meeting, you're probably doing that with someone else, and that other person, if they have a great experience, they're going to sign up for Zoom. And so there's this really amazing flywheel that they're able to create in their product that can accelerate on this product-led growth flywheel. Twilio also says, we put a commercial transaction after the customer is experiencing success with our products. We call this inverting the traditional enterprise sales model, right? So they're delivering value before the paywall and making it really easy to get started, but then they're not anti-sales. They have a sales team. It's just that sales team is all about reducing friction for their customers and working in collaboration with their customers to expand Twilio within the account. And we've seen the PLG IPO wave is building. I think in the last couple of years, the majority of software companies that went public are product-led growth companies. And you can look at, Datadog, Slack, Fastly, Zoom, PagerDuty, Elastic, SurveyMonkey, and so on. And they're not just going public, but they're actually performing even better post-IPO. And we need to update this in a post-COVID world, but I think it's pretty safe to assume that these companies have continued to perform better than their peers, especially driven by the likes of companies like Dropbox, Slack, Zoom, and Atlassian that are really critical to this remote era. And this is not just pocket change. These companies are now worth over $200 billion in market cap, and so they're really here to stay. This isn't just we're not in the early innings of this trend anymore. We're really in mass adoption. And so I'll just close with the end user era is here, and product-led growth is so critical to how you adapt. And feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or Twitter if you want to talk more about product-led growth or get the latest insights on what we're seeing in the market. Thanks, everyone.